Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Ramadan Mubarak. This was a case that really pulled on my heartstrings, but it is part of the motivation to me creating lots of motherhood content and really trying to have consistent uploads that make women feel more patient, or at least that there's hope, and supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the trials they face in motherhood. Now, this ghastly monster, and I think it's very important to focus on female crime as well, the faces of evil often surprise us, and this woman definitely was diabolical. She went to vacation in Detroit and Puerto Rico, left her 16-month-old child in the crib for 10 days. When she came back, obviously the child had passed away, and she's from Ohio. Her name was Cristel Calendario. She was 32. And what's really even more heart-wrenching is when you do further research on this case, the neighbor's porch camera, captured the crying. And the parents of this woman, who are the grandparents of the child, defended her in court, saying she didn't have a good childhood. And they try to help her get less sentencing. But she's going to do life in prison, alhamdulillah, eye for an eye, and not be let out. And the question on my mind was, why didn't she try to find a sitter? Where was the father in this whole thing? They don't tell us that. Was he on vacation with her? But they said she was with her boyfriend. Very highly suspect. And why did she have no family members who could safely watch the child? Why did she choose to go on vacation and not take her child with her? Right? It's a lot going on here, where you can see this woman deliberately wanted her child to end. If she didn't want her child, why didn't she put it up for adoption? Why she didn't put the child in foster care? So many questions, right? Instead, she chose one of the most cruelest ways to remove a child from this world. The slow starvation and dehydration that child must have felt while being soiled in their nappy and crying out for their mother is cruelty that shows you that some women should just sterilize themselves. They should be sterilized by the government. I think that some women should voluntarily remove themselves from the gene pool if they know they do not want to be moms. So instead of them getting abortions, they should actually get sterilized, and it should be free for them to be sterilized themselves, because they are doing a service to humanity by not procreating, since they are indeed unfit to be mothers. Now, if you think about how deeply she must have resented motherhood to do this to her child, you can see that there's a spiritual element as well. And she's fat as well. It always puzzles me when the mother is fat, but her child isn't, and they do some type of cruelty, like starvation and whatnot. Because I remember another case on Explore With Us. A fat guy and his fat wife slowly starved their infant to death, denying her food, and she passed away. It was a very troubling documentary on them, but it seems to be a prevalent pattern where clearly these obese people, these chubby chunkers, are not going without a meal, but they're fine with their child suffering from hunger, which is puzzling and shows you the level of their depravity and neglect. And I often make prayers for children who are suffering, and for mothers to have patience with their children. Everyone has a hard day. Everyone will yell when they shouldn't have, or could have played soccer longer with their kids, things like that. But this woman said she was depressed, needed to go on vacation. Essentially, she wanted to get away from her child, and she did it in a way that led to a very painful and cruel drug-out death. And what's really monstrous as well is that there will be liberals who will say she doesn't deserve the death penalty. She's getting life in prison, But again, I think we need to have work camps and put these prisoners to work, because she's getting guaranteed showers. She doesn't have to work. She doesn't have to do anything productive. Just sit, eat, defecate, and sleep. Her life should be much harder than just forcing loneliness and solitude. She should have to grind out and to a harsh level. Kids are mining cobalt and losing limbs and suffering under the sun, while these quite vile people are living under the roof of the cells, not facing any harsh elements. And I think this is a waste of human energy. And also, people need organ transplants, so I don't see why we're wasting that fully healthy human being. Well, she's fat, so she's not the healthiest, but you need 2 kidneys in prison. That may sound cruel, but think about it. Women like her, I get the Constitution, Bill of Rights, whatever, no cruel and unusual punishments, but we've tried that since the 17th century, and criminality has only gotten worse. And so, I'd argue Cristel Calendario should face more severe consequences than life in prison. Okay? And with human rights organizations, they're trying to make prisons softer. So, the human mind can adapt to many situations. And I think that she deserves to pay worse. She'll never have her freedom again, but she'll learn to appreciate the freedom she has in prison. And I think that's a problem. And so, when you're making your du'as in Ramadan, please just pray for moms that they don't go into psychosis, that shaitan doesn't convince them to hurt their own children, that demons don't manifest in these women to become evil, and that you check in on women who have children. How are you? How you're doing? Have these talks. There's solutions out there for this type of criminality. And stress, people want to go on vacation is to get rid of stress. And when you have limited funds, you have to find creative ways to get rid of stress. And that's why I've always tried to create lots of content to where I lead by example and show you what's worked for me, what's worked for others, and brainstorms that you can come up with solutions that are viable to your living situation. Because clearly, this woman was always evil, never really loved her child, but she contends she had a high amount of stress, and she felt that she had to do that in order to get relief. And so this brings up the conversation of support systems, how women need support systems. I think it's very important now with the breakdown of the families that we have consistent uploads, conversations, and dialogues, you name it, around anger management, health, mental illness, moments of doubt, moments where you need to really connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that you take it easy. Motherhood is a stressful arena, and if you're being a good parent, it's going to be stressful. If you're a bad parent, it's not as hard. But for good moms, you're going to be stressed. It's how I feel, earn our place in Jannah, because we're told in Hadith, a believer will be compensated even for the pain of a thorn in them. I'm summarizing. Look up the Hadith. It's one of my favorite Sahih. And we know that this world is a test and trial. What we say we believe, but we won't be put to test our mettle? Of course not. So, children are a test for us. How will we treat them? Each age comes with its own benefits, rewards, and troubles. How your child behave when they're 5, those problems will be different than when your kid is a tween, and when they're getting married, right? Your children will always have different stages of what they do in terms of offenses that get under your skin. And that will change depending on the context of their age. So when you're toddlers, like taking books out the bookshelf, but then when your 11-year-old starts to talk back, those are different stresses that a mom and father have to deal with. And since so many people now are single moms and in poverty or widows or don't have healthy moms to call upon as grandmas or grandparents, this is a dilemma. And so people have chosen also to not have as many kids. Populations are going down because they see the stressors. And this monster, Christelle, is an example of evil that women need to find ways to relieve stress and take joy in what they have. And the cruelty of her being able to party and sleep while her child, who loves her more than anything in this entire world, is calling out for her, crying, and she's sleeping, farting, using the bathroom, while her little one is soiled, hungry, alone, and frightened. And teaching women as best as we can, because we don't know if it's nature versus nurture, but teaching women that this mercy towards children. This is why the occultic, feminist, ice queen is so dangerous, who glorifies abortion, because they cut themselves off from feeling anything for the little children. And when they call themselves child-free, these are people who don't have any mercy towards innocence. And when that type of mindset gets into a woman who is already struggling as a mom, it can make her quite dangerous for children. And so, not every person should be a mom, but if you're a bad mom, you need to be able to have outlets for help. And just remember to pray for these children, because there's quite a lot in this world. 16 months, innocent, pure. They smile and they run up to you and cuddle you, and they can say mama and dada in few words. It's really horrible. Really horrible. Interestingly, if you think from the atheist perspective, they'll say things like, hell's not real. There's no such thing as evil. And then you're like, this woman clearly is got a rotten soul. And that baby will be avenged because Allah is swift in accounting. And it's a lesson for us all. A lesson for us all. That's why if some people want to sterilize themselves, go ahead and do that. If you think you can't be a good mom, remove yourself, because you shouldn't subject children to that. And we need to make sure that adoption agencies, orphanages, and whatnot are safe and secure for children. Let me know what you think. It's a pretty dark story, but the faces of evil continue, and they come in so many varieties. Helps us to realize what kind of planet we live on. If you'd like to join my blog and read more of the things I write, it's www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. Hope to see you there.